Hello, Arkansas, and welcome to this week's edition of Arkansas Money Talk, brought to you by the team of Retire Path Wealth. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and joining me in the studio is the President of Wealth Management, Dale Colclasure, and co-founder, Mark Smalling. We're so glad you're joining us today. We've got a jam-packed show for you, but before we dive in, Dale, Mark, always good to be here with you both. And we were talking before today's show about an interesting story that occurred from someone who watched the television show, called in and came in to meet with you. I would love for you to kick off today's show by sharing that story with our viewers.
Yeah, so we had a gentleman who had come in from watching the television program and already come to realize, hey, they do things differently than my current advisor does.
Mm-hmm.
That's
a common theme you're hearing, right?
Absolutely.
Yep.
That's generally what generates the interest.
Mm-hmm.
Come in with his wife. We're sitting down, going through the process. Working through the beginning of the second meeting, and about halfway through, she's like, "Okay, this is all I need to know." Mm-hmm. And so,
meaning she was ready. She was like, "Yep, I want it."
Absolutely.
Yep.
You've confirmed everything that we've talked about.
Yep.
We go through. They decide to become a client. We start working through the process. About 2 to 3 weeks into the process, one afternoon, the gentleman calls and he goes, "Hey, I think I might have jumped the gun a little bit." So obviously, his prior advisor had been calling him on the phone going, "Hey, what's the deal? What's going on?"
Mm-hmm.
And he's telling him, "Oh, we do stress testing and we do all this stuff with your asset allocation." And I reminded him, that's not why you made the decision to come with us. It was all of the other things that we discussed, because we just assume when you're doing the asset management that all of those things are occurring.
Right.
And so what was unique about the story we were discussing was he said, well, the client says, well, maybe I just didn't know what questions to ask because I hadn't been educated
My
enough.
current advisor, right?
Yeah,
I didn't
to
know
his
which
current
question.
advisor.
Okay,
That's right.
Yep.
What to ask the current advisor beforehand. And that's when I reminded him that's our job.
As advisors.
As advisors, to know what questions to ask you, to figure out how it is that we best service you, not you asking the questions to find out how to get the best service.
That's a really important distinction for sure. And I always tell people too, you're not supposed to be an expert in any of these things. That's your job as the advisor. You just get to be an expert in you, but then your job is to ask the right questions to make sure that someone is making the best decision possible with their hard-earned money. So it's interesting that he felt like he was second guessing or that it was his fault, but I have to assume that was because the current advisor was maybe making him feel a little guilty about making a change, right?
Well, we revert back to the ease. I mean, it's human nature is to go back to what we know.
Yep.
And what we know is we go in and somebody just talks about asset allocation and they don't ask us all these other questions that we have to figure out.
Well, that's a perfect segue into what we're going to be doing today, because we are going to be discussing a lot of the questions that get asked during the first appointment to assess your risk tolerance and your risk capacity, which becomes even more important as you near and enter retirement. The reality is that it's easy to take on big amounts of risk when we are younger, when we are working, when we are saving and accumulating. But an important shift needs to happen as we approach retirement, because those huge gains aren't going to help you as much as a huge loss could absolutely devastate you. And again, this is something that sets you and the team apart, is that you focus specifically on retirement income planning, helping people safely distribute what they've accumulated, when so much of our industry is only focused on the investment piece and on that accumulation phase, right?
That's right.
That's correct.
Yep. Yeah. All right, so we're talking about risk today, and what we thought we would do is unpack in real time what it's like to kind of walk through this first appointment with you guys, right? And the questions you're going to be asking. So that's what I want to know. What kind of questions do you ask folks when they sit down with you for the first time to help them assess their risk tolerance and capacity?
Right. I'll tell you what, let's have some fun with it today.
Okay.
I've got what you're asking. Let me ask you the questions.
All right,
today.
so you're going to be the host here. I'll just kind of sit back now today and relax.
And so the viewers can kind of play along with all of this, and we're going to kind of go through some of the questions that we would ask people as they come in. And so when we're trying to assess all of their information when we're getting ready to put together a written income plan, one of the first things we start doing is we kind of assess where people think they are today. So if I were to ask you what kind of investor you consider yourself to be, do you consider yourself to be conservative in that you're very risk averse and you don't really want to take on any risk, or you're moderate, which you're okay with a a little bit of risk, but only to a certain limit? Or are you aggressive, where you're okay with the ups and downs of the market, and you're okay waiting for things to recover if something happens? Where would you put yourself in
Okay,
those?
so those are my three options.
Those
right?
are your three options.
I'm going to answer this in a couple different ways, because back before I got into this industry, before I became a financial educator, before I knew or understood any of this stuff, I probably would have said conservative, because I tend to not be a huge risk taker in life, right? But once I understood that the biggest asset I have on my side is time, and that time in the market and having a long time horizon is so essential, I became much more aggressive. So currently in my mid 40s, I would say that I'm still aggressive when it comes to investing. However, if I was within a few years of retirement, in that retirement red zone like we talk about, I would say I want to become more conservative, because I don't want to risk losing what I have saved. So hopefully that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, well, Kristen, that makes a lot of sense, because again, what you've kind of told us is you're okay with some market volatility, but you've come to an understanding that there's at least a portion of those assets, most likely the ones that you're going to have to use for income in the near future, that you don't want to see volatility with. And so I think in many cases, there's a lot more discernment that has to come on our part from what those answers are, because so many times, as you've already mentioned, we're commonly speaking two different languages.
For sure. Yep. And again, it depends on your age and stage of life, right? Because how I answer the question today will be very different 20, 30 years from now.
Right. And oftentimes we kind of joke about this when we ask somebody, are you conservative, moderate, or aggressive? They just go,
Right. I'm all the above, right? Depending on the day.
Depending on the day. I'm all of the above.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So what's the next way you would take that conversation based on my answer, to dig a little deeper and assess, where I need to be going?
Right. And so, we try to narrow down, because, that gives us kind of a broad idea of where you are. So then we ask questions like, okay, if the market was to drop 20% today, what would you do?
So, how would I feel about it, right?
So are you going to panic and sell? Are you going to wait 3 to 6 months and reevaluate what you're doing, or are you just going to stay the course? Which way what would you do in that situation?
Okay, so if the market were to drop 20% today based on my current age and stage of life, I wouldn't like it. I don't think anybody likes that, right? It would feel like a gut punch. But I would stay the course, because I know that time is still on my side. But again, if I was older, nearing retirement, I would not be happy about it at all, and would want to go, okay, how do I help myself regain, hopefully, some of what I've lost, but also not subject myself to further loss, if that makes sense.
Well, and it does make perfect sense. And the reality is we need to help you understand that a 20% loss is going to happen about 90% of all years. And those are inter-year updates and changes. So again, if we focused on income with our plan, again, income planning is what we're talking about here, folks. If we focused on income and shown you how we can maintain your level of income during those market fluctuations, and that the part of your income is never going to be affected by that, I think it gives people a lot more surety and understanding as to how an income plan works, as opposed to just a simple asset allocation.
Right.
And sometimes we ask that question a little bit different, to dig a little bit deeper, and we actually let's say that we had $500,000 sitting in an account, and that went to $400,000. Because sometimes the dollars mean more than the percents, and we've kind of talked about this before. Percents don't always calculate.
Yes, they don't resonate.
They don't resonate with people the same way as
when you're dealing with actual dollars.
Actual
right?
dollars.
Yeah.
So if it went down 100,000, or if you have $1 million, it went down 200,000. Sometimes people we get a different answer.
Yes. And that hits a little more, at home, especially if I was at retirement and I'm looking at, let's say, $1 million saved up, and I'm going, this has to last me through the rest of my life, and I just took a $200,000 hit. That does hit a little differently than just saying 20%.
Right. And we actually just had that happen with an appointment that we've had in the last couple of weeks, where it was literally that, where there was that much movement in a person's account, and it makes you think differently.
Right.
Sometimes.
Yep. And I know you see those reactions. You can probably actually feel someone's emotions shift when you ask these questions in different ways, I would guess, right?
Oh, absolutely. And that's really the purpose, because what we want to do is we want to have a solid plan that's already in place, that's set to where we have a resource to go back to where we don't make negative decisions based on those emotions. A long time ago, one of the greatest pieces of advice I ever received from a longtime advisor was, Dale, most people make financial decisions based off fear and greed. Okay, they're typically the worst two reasons to make any financial decision. Our job, we feel, is to help remove those two factors so that you can make the most sensible decision for your situation. So if you're out there today and you've seen these kind of fluctuations happen, you don't really understand what risk means or tolerance and all these other fancy words that get used out there, you don't know what they mean in your particular situation, give us a call. Let us walk through the data. Let's put down a written income plan for you so that you have a resource to reach back to understand, hey, when the markets fluctuate, I'm still going to be okay because I have this plan in place.
Dale, Mark, thank you so much. I'm excited to know what other questions you're going to ask me. I feel like I'm in the hot seat today. Thank you so much. To our viewers at home, that number to call to start this process and claim your very own complimentary written income plan, simply call 866-724-3893. Or if you'd like to connect online, you can simply scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. Stay with us. We'll be back with more right after this.
As a good saver, you've been putting away money during your working years. Studies find that the biggest fear of retirees is running out of money. Market volatility isn't just the downward movement of stock prices, it's the size and frequency of change. The more dramatic the ups and downs, the higher the volatility. This can put savers who are newly retired or a few years away from being retired at greater risk. Today's generation of retirees is not receiving traditional pensions as our parents or grandparents did. Instead, we have retirement accounts such as 401ks or 403bs. These accounts typically expose your money to market risk. The last thing you want right before retirement is to lose a portion of the money you need for income. But how do you turn these accounts into a retirement income? Is it safe to keep all your retirement money sitting in the stock market? The last thing you want is to lose a portion of the money you need for income due to market loss. By working with a financial professional, you can learn how to turn a portion of your savings into an income stream for life and income for the life of your spouse if you're married. We all have moments in our lives when we wish we had taken action sooner. Don't let procrastination reign on your retirement parade. Act now before it's too late. Please call our office to set up your no-cost, no-obligation retirement income review today.
Well, welcome back to Arkansas Money Talk. I'm Kristen Oakley here with both Dale Colclaser and Mark Smalling from Retire Path Wealth. We're so glad you're joining us today. We are calling today's show Risk On or Risk Off. The reality is that things like risk tolerance, time horizon, investment styles all need to be properly evaluated and then often adjusted as you are approaching and entering retirement. And we're having some fun with this today, kind of unpacking in real time what the kind of conversation is you have with folks when they come in and meet with you for the first time so that you can accurately assess what your risk tolerance and risk capacity might be. And they're doing it by asking me those questions, and I have no idea what you're going to ask me next. So what's on the list?
All right, so yeah, once we've kind of assessed where we are risk tolerance wise, we need to find out what the time horizon is. So, Kristen, how long, once you're invested, how long do you plan on your dollar staying invested? Are we 1 to 3 years, from retirement? Are we 3 to 5 years from retirement? Or are we 6 years or beyond, for retirement?
Yes.
When we're actually going to need our income.
Well, at the age of 45, we are definitely six plus years out. So, yes. I know my husband, though, this is an interesting thing to consider. So, in 9 years, he will qualify for his full pension as a teacher. And so, he knows he wants to do something different. He's not sure what that is, but that's our closest to retirement in the Oakley household that we are.
Right.
Well, and Kristen, what that really does is it helps us to then narrow down what the options are available. The reality is is the investment landscape is just immense. There are lots of different options in the brokerage world, in the insurance world, of all these different places out there.
Right.
But again, based on how you answered the first questions, help us figure out how much guaranteed income you may want to have in your situation outside of that. So there's things I don't have to worry about.
Right.
Depending on that time frame that we have to work on, it can then help narrow down which option may be the best choice as well to set that income in, and then how to replace the rest of the portfolio as well. Because our job is to not tell you what to do, but it's to narrow down all of the options that are available outside of there so that your decision is easier to make. People come in all the time and it's like, it's, hey, do what you do for yourself. Do what you would do for your grandmother. And the reality of it is I get the gist behind what they're trying to say, is they're treat us like you would treat yourself. But the reality is we're all different. We have different thresholds. We have different goals and objectives out there, and we need to narrow down what yours are.
And this speaks to the fact that it's not a cookie cutter approach. Like people can't call in and say, oh, can you send me one of these written income plan thingies, right? It doesn't work that way, because you start each plan with a blank sheet of paper, and based on the data that you're receiving, based on the answers you're being given, that then helps you put together the best possible plan for that individual.
Living, breathing situation.
Because we're figuring out where you are in this point in time, and then we're trying to figure out where you need to be based on your time horizon. So timing and how we handle all that is extremely important. I mean, we need to know, because we need to make sure that your dollars are in the right places, doing the right jobs at the right time, in order to make sure that we end up with a successful outcome.
Yeah, for sure. Well, what other questions do you have for me at this point in the process? Hit me. What you got?
Hit you. Well, when we're talking about income planning, we also want to figure out what those the goals are. So we're looking at we figure out what the needs are. So there's a certain amount of dollars we need showing up every month to pay the bills.
Yes. Yep.
So we've got to figure out what that amount is. And then we have what we call wants or desires of that. What do we want to do in retirement? Because one of the things we're not going to be doing in retirement is working 40 hours a week.
Yes.
And so we're going to have a lot of extra time to spend extra money. So we need to determine what that is. And oftentimes people don't have any idea. So it's helping them to kind of uncover what their goals are. And sometimes it's, hey, this is what's coming in every month and we're spending almost everything. Well, that's pretty easy. If we're spending that, that's probably what our goal is.
But sometimes that question, Christian, is as simple as, what do you need on a monthly basis? And they go, I really don't know. And it's like, okay, do you get paid twice a month? What gets deposited in your paycheck, from your paycheck into your bank account?
Right.
So, what gets deposited each month? What do you need? And then we can work off of that number.
Right. But it's interesting, that whole question of what do you need and then what do you want to do? Because I think a lot of people, it's almost like you are giving them permission to dream.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Permission to say, okay, you've worked so hard your whole life. What's next? What are you transitioning to? And that's exciting when you can help someone's dreams become a reality as a result of building a plan.
Well, and it's not, and sometimes it's large purchases, or they want to move to a new house to be closer to their kids. I mean, it's all these different things. We've got to plan for those.
Yes.
Those are not things that we can just let happen, especially if there's dollars and cents involved. And, it used to be there was this idea of downsizing, and I just read an article a couple of days about this, that the whole idea of downsizing and actually moving someplace and saving money almost doesn't work anymore. But still people have the idea of doing that, or they do want to be closer to their children and grandchildren.
Yes,
I think they want to be closer to their grandchildren mostly. Mostly that's what it is. But we start seeing those. So it's developing a plan around all of those different
and then one of the newest enhancements that we've added is we now have planning that offers guardrails to the upper and lower segments.
Okay.
So basically, due to fluctuations in the market, if we were to perform better than we anticipate, here's what spending could go to. If someone were to overspend, or the market conditions were to decrease dramatically, here's where we may need to cut back in some areas. And so it's not just a static thing, because Chris, that's not how life works.
No, life happens, right? And life still happens after you retire as well. But you can't make tweaks and adjustments to a plan that's not there.
That's correct.
And that's not in place.
Yep. So if you're out there and you don't have that plan in place, reach out and give us a ring. Let's get it started today.
Wonderful. Dale, Mark, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, that number to call is 866-724-3893. Or if you'd rather connect online, simply scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. We'll be back with more right after this.
I became a financial advisor through a referral from my financial advisor. I was leaving a career in the corporate world, and basically was looking for something else to do. And he said, hey, don't you have a finance degree that maybe you can put to good use? I went to college, was supposed to be a dentist. And physics and organic chemistry changed that path. I think it was the realization of having worked somewhere long enough to know that I didn't want to have to work for someone else, that I was looking for a more entrepreneurial career path. And the opportunity for financial planning offered that, to where I could basically have my own practice at that time. Started one of the biggest financial planning firms out there. There was a lot of positives learned from there, but also learned a lot of things that didn't really line up with my sense of belief, and knew that there were others out there that probably felt exactly the same way. So even though I learned a lot about the industry, I also began to learn that a lot of financial advisors are taught the industry by the vendors and wholesalers themselves, and came to the understanding that a lot of what we consider to be general consensus advice is really based on those techniques that are benefiting those that are teaching, not necessarily those that are investing in those products.
Welcome back to Arkansas Money Talk. This has been a really fun conversation. If you're just tuning in and joining us, Dale and Mark have been asking me some of the questions that they ask folks when they come in for the very first time and meet with them to receive the complimentary written income plan to assess my risk tolerance, my risk capacity, and what steps I need to take next. And I'm sure that these questions, it's been really valuable for our viewers to kind of walk through this in real time, right? Because there's so much you're able to glean based on the questions that you ask, but even more importantly, on the responses that you receive.
Absolutely.
It is. And, you know, we were talking about earlier about needs and wants. And so, Kristen, so when you retire, what are some of your goals and aspirations in retirement?
So lots of travel. My husband and I love to travel. We love to explore. Actually, last week we were on a quick vacation and we found out that there's this awesome cruise that goes to the Galapagos Islands, right? And then we saw the price tag and we were like, we might have to wait on that one until retirement, right?
Yeah, right.
But we love to travel. And so I can imagine that we potentially might spend a little more money the first few years that we're retired, when we still, hopefully, God willing, have the physical health to do that.
Right.
But there is that always concern in the back of our minds of wanting to make sure we have enough money later on in life, knowing that healthcare costs, long-term care could become, an issue. So we want to have that confidence of we can go ahead and spend and do these big fun trips when we're able to, and know that we're not going to run out of money later in life.
Well, Kristen, and it's great that you say that, and then you've added in the other things that are concerns that, well, what if I do this? Is it going to jeopardize my future possible outcome? Well, the reality of what you just told me now is that, hey, I have other concerns outside of just making sure I enjoy my retirement. I want to be able to take care of myself on the backside. And the reality is that there are investment options out there and products that have the capacity to do both of those things. We can generate a lifestyle income that we can never outlive. If we then get to a situation to where I need long-term style care, not only does that income continue, but it also has the ability to increase even if that particular account's run out of money. So there's some really unique
features.
Thank you. Feature options, that are out there associated with certain investment structures that can give us coverage to multiple aspects. Again, not a solve for everything,
right?
But a solve for that guarantee need, and then an enhancement in case I need something additional.
Right. Yeah. Well, and everybody's dreams and desires are different. And so that's why this has to be so much fun for you guys. You never have the same day twice.
You don't. No, you don't.
You never have the same plan twice, right?
No, you don't. And you ask people, whether they want to have their house paid off or not. Some people do, some people don't. As Dell says all the time, it's all about cash flow. I mean, if we can cash flow the payment, maybe we don't need to. If we have a really low interest rate, maybe that's not what should be at the top of our list, but for some people it is.
Right. Yep.
Some people are going to pay off their house regardless of what it does to their other finances.
Because psychologically that helps them feel better, right?
It helps.
Yeah.
It helps them feel better.
Right.
You talked about travel and entertainment. Dale says this all the time. He said, "There's very few things that are free in this world anymore."
Right. Yep.
Yeah, almost everything costs something.
Yes.
That's right.
It's not, so that's, and then we do have some people that say, as we're trying to assess where they are in their spending, there's some people that say they can live on less, which we don't see very often, but we've had people say, oh, no, we definitely think we can. I said, so we do a little pre-retirement budget trial, a little practice.
Okay. Right.
Let's try this out before there's no income coming in anymore to see if this will actually work in your situation, because
take it for a test drive, right?
Take it for a test drive, because you don't want to get into retirement and go, oh, I think I can live on 20% less, and then you find out, no, I can't.
Right. Yeah.
That's,
and most people don't want to cut their lifestyle just because they stop working.
They don't.
Right? Yeah.
Well, we find that people don't change their spending habits. If you're savers now, you'll most likely continue to be savers as you go into retirement. You're a spender, and sometimes we have a combination of the two.
Right, yes. Often people are married who are different than each other, right?
That's exactly right.
You put a spender and a saver together often.
And they'll call each other out.
Right.
They do.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, this is so awesome to just think through all the ins and outs. And I think that one of the things I appreciate about you and the team is you create such a welcoming environment when folks come in, and it is this family feel to be able to ask these questions. You're not doing it because you're being nosy. Right. You're doing it because you're good. Investigators is a great way to think about it, right? The more information that's provided to you, the more you're going to be able to help and serve the folks that are sitting across the table from you.
Yeah, we generally feel a calling to help people assist in their situation to make more complex issues simpler to understand. The reality of it is, and we probably have said this before, but we say it all the time, when you come in and people say, gosh, there's so much to this, and this retirement thing can get so complicated. I said, yes, because you only get to do it once. We get to do it a couple hundred times a year. And so the reality is once you kind of learn the steps can be relatively consistent. It's just the outcome and the input that would be different for everybody's individual situation.
Right. Well, and I know you love getting to do this. You love helping and serving Arkansas, and I'm excited for more folks to connect with you as a result of today's show. So any parting words you want to leave with our viewers?
Well, I'd like to say if this is something that you haven't had discussions about, you don't feel like that you have an actual written income plan about where you're going to be going in retirement, we invite you to come in. We'd love to help you establish your own retire path.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Mark and Dale. Enjoyed this conversation. I enjoyed being in the hot seat and getting you guys to ask me some questions. That was great. But we hope you've enjoyed it as well and found it to be helpful. Again, the team would love to be able to meet with you and help you for your specific individual situation, but you have to pick up the phone and call 866-724-3893. We love you, Arkansas. We'll see you next time here on Arkansas Money Talk.